Okay, so Marcelo, thank you very much for coming to talk to us today.
Pleasure to be here.
And tell us about your company, Rinri Therapeutics.
Yeah, Rinri Therapeutics, what we're trying to do is to develop basically a novel treatment for hearing loss using the potential of stem cells. Hearing loss is a difficult space in the sense because there is no treatment for hearing loss at the moment. The only thing that you can use are palliative devices like a hearing aid or a cochlear implant, but there's no biological restorative treatment available at the moment. We think that by using stem cells, we can restore the cells which are being lost in the patients that lost the sense of hearing, and therefore reinstall the normal audition to people who have lost it.
Tell me, what was your personal motivation in making that decision to commercialize your research?
It was primarily driven by the fact that I wanted to translate what we're doing in the lab into a real-world application. And hearing loss can be very debilitating. It's a condition that has an enormous sort of social toll. And because the clinical data that we were generating in the academic lab was really, really exciting and promising, I wanted to see that translated into a real clinical application and benefiting the potentially millions of people that are suffering the condition.
So the company has been established for a number of years now. Can you tell us a bit about your own personal journey in terms of, you obviously had to learn a lot of new skills as you moved from the laboratory setting out into on the path to, establishing the company, getting investment, everything like that. How did you find that?
Yeah, it was a very interesting and exciting journey. We incorporated in 2018, so that was more than 5 years ago. But getting to that point involved a lot of previous work. Obviously, starting with the fundamental research that was happening in the academic lab at the university, we tried to kind of explore commercialization and industrialization options about 2012, 2013, but the environment wasn't quite ready. Internally, the university haven't seen kind of the potential of using this kind of path very effectively. But fortunately, sort of in about 2016, 2017, there was a change in the commercialization team, and then there was a lot of different vision, and we obtained a lot of support internally that helped us to take this forward. I'm a scientist by training. I train as a medical doctor, but I don't practice, but I'm fundamentally a scientist. So it was very important to have this support from the university, which now has been crystallized in this commercialization journey, which is fantastic, and it really spearheads and facilitates and trains people to be able to do this transition. When we did it early on, it was kind of the early steps of this process, but to me that was critical, and that was very, 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 very useful. In a way, I would like to believe that we also contributed to kind of being like the beta testers of the system, and facilitated to the people which are following the path after us.
What's your current role in the company? I believe you're part-time with the company and part-time with the university.
Yeah, I am the founder, obviously, and the chief scientific officer in the company. So I lead the R&D program and the scientific research that underpins the development of the pipelines within the company.
Okay, and did you start off as CSO, or did this role develop during the development of the company?
It started as a CSO. The company has grown now into having a really very efficient and very talented team. We have a CEO, a chief executive officer, Dr. Simon Chandler, which is really driven and critical to taking the company to where it is now. But we also have now a chief technical officer and chief medical officer and a team of researchers, everybody contributing their own expertise and speciality, pushing this developing forward.
And how does the work of the company and the development of the company mesh with your own research in the university?
At the moment, most of my lab is supported by the company, and that has been also part of the evolution and the growth of personally in the way that sort of I have evolved from being a pure basic scientist into a more translation scientist. Because obviously the type of research I'm doing now, although we still do discovery and fundamental research, most of the research that's happening is geared up to solve problems that will enable us to get into clinical trials. So it's a far more focused and far more applied type of research that we're doing at the moment.
And do you find that it was relatively straightforward to negotiate agreements with the university as to how new IP will be handled, etc.?
It wasn't at the beginning, in the previous phase I was referring before. After 2016, 2017, when we had the new team in the commercialization space, and that's when things really changed, and the university became very amenable to and understood the needs of the industrial world in order to be able to make these transitions.
So would you say that the environment in the university for commercialization has improved a lot in your time?
Absolutely, absolutely. And what we have now is so much ingrained, established, and there is a clear pipeline of development that even 5 years ago, it was still in the early phases of that process. So I think the university has developed substantially in that area, absolutely.
So what would you say to a young researcher, an early career researcher, that might be thinking about commercializing their research, but also trying to maintain an academic career? Is that possible now?
It's absolutely possible. I would say do it. It is possible. It is challenging. It puts a lot of strains on your time. You have to be very efficient and very effective in the way that you handle your time. But it's entirely possible, and I think it's worthwhile. You enrich your skills, your range of skills. You learn new things. And it's a challenge. For me, it was also important. It took me out of my comfort zone of being like a pure lab researcher into something slightly different.
And of course, we've made changes now to the academic career pathway to enable to strengthen the innovation pillar of that pathway. So staff can put forward evidence for promotion, etc., from their commercialization journey, which I think is a help.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that probably needs still a little bit of revision because I found it myself that the innovation pathway seems to be, at the moment at least, particularly targeted to a particular kind of innovation and doesn't easily apply to the whole spectrum within the university. But I think the right ideas are in place, and hopefully they will kind of sort of transfer to...
To come back to the company, to Rinri Therapeutics, the development of clinical treatments for humans is a very long pathway. And I'm guessing you guys are maybe a percentage of the way along that pathway. So can you talk about your ambitions for, the remainder of the journey, how long it will take, how widespread you think this, or how useful this
absolutely.
This therapy could be?
Yes. The ambition, the potential for the therapy is really large because we are hoping to be able to help millions of people worldwide that suffer debilitating hearing loss, particularly a very specific type of hearing loss when the deficit is in the neurons, the connection that links your inner ear, your cochlea with your brain. That's our main target at the moment. So the short-term ambition, the short-term objective is to get into clinical trials and to be able to produce the proof of concept that our treatment works in humans, in human patients. Obviously, because it's a new modality, it's a new thing, the amount of pre-work that you need to do is huge, and rightly so, because you want to make sure that you're getting in humans with all the safety and all the precautions already covered and in place. But that is our first objective, to be able to get proof of concept in human, which is the first stage of the clinical trials. That hopefully will happen, fingers crossed, next year, and will then progress into going to a series of bigger trials when you take more centers, more people, until you get finally sort of market authorization of your product when you can really administer and use it as a well-established therapy. That will take a few more years.
And do you feel that Sheffield has got everything you need, has got the right environment for that continued growth of the company?
I think so. I absolutely think so. The company now has collaborations and interactions which are outside Sheffield, but I'm very proud of the Sheffield origin. Sheffield has this historical heritage of being a hotbed of industry and ingenuity and sort of novel development. It's the right environment to develop new companies. We have two fantastic universities. We have the Northern Triangle between Sheffield, Leeds, and University of Manchester, which will foster further developing in the industrial space. So I'm very, very happy and proud that Sheffield, as the Rinri was born, embedded in the Sheffield spirit.
Do you feel the university is proud of Rinri?
I think so. I think so, and I would like to hope so.
Good. Thank you very much, Marcelo, for
You're
talking to us
very welcome.
today. And I wish you the very best with the continued development of Rinri and all of your research in the university as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.